Okay. Awesome. I think we're good. I needed to double check because I actually tried to do the third installment of the stream series on April 9th. And turns out I wasn't streaming. So I got a whole bunch of stuff done. Unfortunately, I also, my machine doesn't have the right guts to handle being able to record and stream at the same time. Maybe one day I'll upgrade to something with more than a dual core processor. But for now, with that, unable to record and stream, which means I lost that last session, but that's okay. The recap, and I'll just go over it quickly, is that I finished setting up enough color styles to feel like I've got a good starting point here. Something else I was able to get started on, you can see above, I have some textiles now. I started going through the interface and was using I think Firefox calls them extensions in Chrome. They're, I think, known as plugins, but to just help me kind of bypass the inspect panel, the developer tools, to just help me get a better sense of like font size, line height. And yeah, I've identified enough text styles that I think I can start making components, which is great. I remember a couple weeks ago in the last stream being very eager to start doing that. Only note I'll say on the textiles is, let's move myself out of the way a little bit. So I decided to organize them for now based on kind of which chunk of interface where they show up in YNAB. So if we flip back over here, you'll remember we've got our side navigation is what this is called. And we have a couple different styles in here for all these different buttons or different tabs that we can flip to, right? We've got up here this like darker blue header space. This is a header. There's a couple bits of text up here, more in these modals that fly open. Our inspect panel is what YNAB calls us on the right, our budget inspector. Sometimes you're inspecting your whole budget, but when you have a category selected within your budget, that kind of turns into a category inspector as well. I have not yet tackled, I think, yeah, no, I haven't gotten to this main section yet. But I'm anticipating, we might actually have some of these styles already figured out through establishing some of these other text styles elsewhere in the interface. But we'll find out. We'll find out if that's true or not. Definitely a lot to work off of for now. And I think I'm going to continue that pattern, that cycle that I've been going through, where we start with the side nav, we'll move up to the header, we'll do the budget inspector, and then eventually we'll tackle this big chunk in the middle here with our actual budget categories. And again, so much to do, right? Because this whole time we've been looking at this budget screen. Eventually we're going to have to get to reports. Those same chunks persist throughout, but different stuff going on in here. We're going to have, oh man, like these modals with these really just lot of interactivity in these, scrolling windows. Oh, we've got like pill-shaped buttons that hover. Those are new to me, or at least, I've seen them. I'm familiar with this product, but oh, this tab doesn't really exist. And I think I might have made this mistake in some past streams too, but Toolkit reports, again, this is an extension. This is a browser extension that I should get familiar with the maker's name. This has been a huge help to me, but this is basically just like an extension that lets you tweak a lot of stuff about YNAB's interface. And I would like to, since we're trying to build a component library from nothing, I don't want any of these adjustments that I've set up for my own personal budgeting, my own use of the tool, to get in the way of that. I can point out one of those things you might remember on the budget screen. Yeah, this ready to assign is when we're not, adulterating the CSS with any overrides like that. This is green. When you have money that needs to be assigned. I like to have it be yellow because to me that's like a warning signal. The way that YNAB wants you to budget your money is that this is, it's a zero-based budgeting system where all of your dollars have jobs. And so if they don't have jobs, they live up here. You distribute them below in your categories. So anyway, taking away the toolkit thing. We've also got all of our accounts, which is really just kind of, actually, this is going to be a very similar view, if not the same view, of anything in our budget here. Any bank accounts that we've decided we want to be part of our YNAB budget. And this just shows you everything all together. So if we're specifically looking at checking, we're only going to see transactions for that account. But if we want to look at all transactions across all our accounts, across checking, savings, and emergency, that's what this tab is for. So I guess really only these two big things, budget and reports. And even within reports, there's going to be a lot to do. Spending is going to look different from net worth. And of course, over time, this graph will grow. I only started this demo budget recently. So we've only got this 1 month to go off of. And then same for income and expense. We're going to have to put some dummy data in here to kind of really make sure we're covering all the possible bits of interface. But yeah, we'll stick with this budget screen for now. So let's... I don't know. I think I'm going to work big to small. I might regret saying that. You know, I do like to... I'm a big fan of, you know, kind of atomic design principles. I don't know that I follow or adhere to them super strictly, but I really like that system of thinking, you know, having componentizing lots of things, reusing components inside of other main components. Gosh, I can't think of, I mean, it's just, there's so many benefits. So I'm definitely going to be using that here as I build. And I think now that we're kind of done, we're kind of moving out of inventory mode and into component creation mode, I think it's time for a new page here. So let's start with that big side panel. And let's also, you might remember, if you watched the first stream, one of the first things I demoed was that this side panel, you know, there's a minimum and maximum width to it. So max width, let's see what's going on here. This looks like, gosh, actually the values are really close. I don't want to take a guess. Come on. What's the width? 603? No, that must be the height. I'm assuming this is 596, but I would really prefer to be sure. How come that's not showing up in layout? Oh, this will be a good test for my live stream. Got the air conditioner on today. We're finally getting some warmer weather here. So, okay, 596. That was indeed correct. Great. So, okay, so that's already something to think about. How to handle, I guess, breakpoint stuff as well. Do I want this library to be... I'm definitely going to do desktop first. That's... their mobile app is quite different. I would think, my guess, I would wager that YNAB's product team, I don't know, it's hard to say. They've recently actually been making a lot of updates to their mobile app and the design of it, and they've been great. I've really appreciated some of their changes. I do wonder though, and I've looked a little bit, done some, I guess, lurking around LinkedIn to kind of get a sense of like how big their team is. And I imagine their designers are split across, like they don't have like a dedicated mobile team. I think folks probably work on both, right? Maybe they're assigned out based on like feature. Who knows? But I guess what I'm grappling with here is like how should breakpoint be handled, or how should like minimum and maximum, I mean min and max widths and things obviously could be handled with something like variance. and some neat hacks like the zero hack. Okay, kitty. But yeah, for breakpoint, I'm wondering, like, should that be a separate library? Should that also be handled by variants, a variant property called breakpoint? We're doing that, actually. That's been working well for us at my day job. But I wonder for an app like this, if, you know, where it has a dedicated mobile app, and it is not just a website that is mobile friendly. Those are kind of different things in my mind. But let's get started on that, on building this. So we know at its widest, what did I say? 596, was that it? Yes. Okay, kitty. And at its smallest, let's close this out. At some point, it gets small enough that all of this will just turn into icons. Oh, wow. It would be really cool to be able to build this component in a way that, I mean, I don't know how this would work in prototyping. I've not done a lot with, like, dragging and, yeah, like, dragging things around too much, but I think folks have figured out some hacks for it, and I'm just looking at this, you know, this truncation that's happening where I've got, like, my savings dash general account, right? And the truncation is just kind of taking over that. I wonder if there's a way to do that same thing in Figma prototyping. Okay, so is that threshold? Let's see what this width is before we jump down. Come on. (150 pixels is our smallest. And then once it breaks down into icons, what are we looking at? 55. So you lose almost 100 pixels there. Okay. So all this is a container, right? And we know background color wise. Oh, this will actually be fun. I do want to match this with our existing styles. Oh man, and this is the thing, it's like I really should look this up, but like, how do I get this hex code out of this? Yeah, is there a better way? There we go, background color. But could I get that in a different format? Maybe I'll just copy those values. Now, so I've got a whole bunch of color styles saved, right? But yeah, teal 500 is my guess. Oh, that's interesting. That didn't take. Oh man, is there not going to be a good way to copy this in? 44. Ah, what a bummer. What was it? 151, 173. 173. Oh, 173. Come on. All right. Oh, I think I got pretty close. So frame 2 is using the teal 500 style that I did, that I saved, that I created last time, and then this field here is using this one. I think those are pretty much, I think we're good. So teal 500 for our sidebar, great. Always good to verify. I am certain this will get a lot faster. I will get more familiar with these colors as we go. That will become faster. All right, so what else is going on? We've got kind of these 3 widths. And we've always got like the budget drop down, right? I've named this budget demo, and this has a hover state. You know, we've got this menu that flies open, and then we've got these tabs. So very quickly, we are now going to have to jump into making these smaller components, which is great. It's fine. So let's first get a component set going out of these guys. Find them as variants. We'll add auto layout. These frames themselves should have auto layout on them. I'm not the first to say this, but I do so wish that Figma would not do these default values of 10 for space between and padding, or I wish there was a way to just control that somewhere. Now, we do, let's see, let's inspect again. We do want some padding in here, right? We've got this div. Let's look at layout. Oh. Okay, so we've got 0. Okay, well maybe this button can give us a clue. Oh, but we've also got this little sliver on the side. This is our resizing. Yeah, sidebar resizer. Okay. And that takes up an amount of space that is not 0. It is 3 pixels wide. So we do want to account for that. I imagine those 3 pixels will stay the same throughout. So I wonder if that ought to be its own component. Maybe not necessary. I do tend to, I find it handy to, like, more often than not, I think it's useful to turn something into a component. Oh, we've lost our width there. Hold on. 596 is what this is supposed to be, and that should be a fixed width. All of these fixed width. But yeah, more often than not, I turn things into components. It's free. It, you know, why not? All right, now I want our width resizer. What was the actual name? Sidebar resizer. Great. So we've got our sidebar resizer, and then we've got, you know, looking at the structure. Like, let's collapse a couple things here. We're gonna need another frame. Yeah, you've got sidebar left and you've got sidebar resizer. So sidebar left probably wants to fill all available space. So let's duplicate this. And oh, I gotta zoom in because this is way too tight. Yes. So this guy, let's take away the fill. It should be set up to fill all available space. So this would be sidebar content. Was that correct? Yeah. Right? No, it's sidebar left. We'll name it that. We'll stick with it. Great. And this is where all of those buttons are going to go. In the meantime, and you know what, it'll probably just be easier for me to build one of these variants and then handle these different, like right now my one property is actually, gosh, I guess it's not breakpoint, but it's just like, no, maybe it is breakpoint. We'll just go with that. And I will build the smaller ones later, but I do want to leave a note about what their width is. So we've got 150. Okay. So we've got max width equals 596. Medium, I guess. Their min width before dropping all text is 150, and then true minimum width. Only icons. is, what did we say, 55? I'll double check that. Yeah, cool. And I'm just gonna get rid of these for now because I would prefer to just, you know, put all the stuff, like have frame 1 here, have the correct structure, and we'll call this max. Yeah, we'll just call it max width. It'll have, you know, all the containing structure that it needs. And then when I duplicate that into other variants, I, you know, save myself some work. I'm also going to add auto layout to these frames because why not? Sidebar left. I think I also want to fill all available vertical space as well for that. And then the sidebar resizer, that should definitely have a fixed width, but it should also fill all available vertical space. No space between, no padding, and we can take away the fill on that. Now, I'm still after figuring out what the padding ought to be for this stuff in sidebar left. And I think to figure that out, we can look at this button. Right, this should update. So we've got a margin of 8 and padding of 8 as well. So it looks like 8 all around, but on the side, it's kind of, no, yeah, it's a little different. Right, because we're making up, of course, it has to be 5 pixels on the right because we've got our sidebar resizer that is 3, and 3 and 5 makes 8. Good, cool. So we'll do 8, 3, 8, 8. Oh, I'm sorry, that was supposed to be 5. There we go. Great, so now when we drop stuff in here, it'll be correct. And let's rename this from component 1 to side nav. Or, I'm sorry, sidebar. All right. Good. Nothing else to do. So now we can, yeah, we can work on this button, which is great. Our first one. And I'm gonna need, oh, I'm gonna need that SVG. Can I, will this thing, let me copy and paste. Can I just copy the SVG in here? No, that's just an empty frame. Copy the CSS path. Dang it, okay. Edit as SVG. What's this little guy? Oh, I had to do this to make the YouTube thumbnail. I was successful at this before. I don't know what XPath is. Okay, well, I promise you, I've grabbed it before because I had to make this thing. So I'm just gonna grab that. I'll grab this vector. Paste it over here. YNAB logo. Great. So that is the first part of our navigation. Or I'm sorry, yeah, our sidebar button here. And then we have some text. Oh, come on, let me zoom in. Budget name. Oh, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted anyway. So the fill I know is white. Then we've got some text under it, right, for the email. That is our account email. Those can go in an auto layout frame. What do we got for spacing? Looks like maybe nothing. I wouldn't be surprised if it was nothing. Great. And those can go in a frame. I think we also need, oh, and I gotta check on the height of the SVG. This has some padding and stuff going on. This has 8 pixels on either side, which, let's see. What I'm deciding now is, do I want to leave the YNAB logo as is and then put another frame around it to handle that 8 pixels? Because, let's see. So when we hover over this, I suppose they did that so it's like in line with these other icons. That'll be interesting to see when we dig into these tab buttons. That's definitely not their actual name. I'm forgetting what it is. But the other thing I'm wondering is if we should just apply it to this main component, right? We've got our vector path inside. If I add auto layout here, which I probably should, honestly. And of course that blows this guy up. For the vector within, we can tell it to fill all available space, so that way its containing frame, right, is forced to be fixed width. We can shrink that down, and then that lets us add, right, our 8 pixels. Oh, shoot. Oh, I wasn't expecting that, I suppose. It's the most efficient way. Maybe this needs to go in another frame. And now down here, let's reset all of our overrides. Wash this. Okay, come on, what's going on with frame 3? Yeah, fill. Oh, that's a fixed width. Okay. And now if we do those 8 pixels of space, right? If we put them here, now we get the same effect. It squishes. Okay, well, with that being the case, let's take away frame 3. We'll still have this guy filling all available space. That's fine. I do want to have auto layout on it just so we have, like, you know, auto layout works best when the parents and the children, like, are all using it. It's, like, dependent on relationships like that. So what that means for frame 2 here is we'll just wrap this in a frame. Let's call it something like logo container. We'll take away our 8 pixels there. Yeah, and instead put them here. And what is the actual height? 24. Oh, we were close. There we go. Okay, great. And then what? All right. Oh, I wonder how the hover state is handled. Because so I'm handling, right, color, the fill of our sidebar. I've got that handled by, like, you know, this big outside frame. And I could also give this button, this 2B button, that same fill. But I'm wondering if they've got, like, you know, if this is a color with 100% opacity, or maybe it's not quite. Maybe it's like a black at like 20% or something. Where do I find that? I do find it more difficult. Firefox's inspector to be more difficult to navigate. I'm just not familiar with it as much. Might switch to Chrome. It looks like, yeah, it is. So the background color is changing, and like if we took away on the nav, if we took away the background color, that's another way, I guess, to investigate it. Like, what if I edit these values? Okay. Right, yep, there you go. So taking away the background colors, like this does have that fill. These other guys don't, though. Interesting. Okay, rad. So let's line that up. We'll use our same teal. I think I saw 8 all the way around on this. We're also missing, I need, oh, you know what? I really got to figure out that SVG thing because I'm going to need that caret. This guy. Oh, which looks like it has its own. Yeah, interesting. Or it's just, it's taking up an interesting amount of space, 24 by 19.2. And it's a flex item. How am I gonna get you? For now, I might just make one. Which is maybe not, it's not gonna be ideal. It's not gonna be that close. This should probably be a component. Icon, tear it down. And we will expand upon our icon library as needed. Okay. And what, that had like a width of 24? Okay, this thing is way too huge. Oh no, we're good. But like the The shape, definitely not good. This could get smaller. And I suppose we can give that some auto layout. Gosh, it's huge here. I need the height. Less height and probably less, you know, start using some decimals. Something like that. If I'm just eyeballing it. Oh man, maybe it really is just 1 pixel of rounded corners. Okay. Temporary. I do want to get the real thing, but you know, we're just establishing the beginnings of this. I think it's okay. All right, and this we're gonna need a little less. Actually, let's make it 2 on this side. I think it was lopsided like that. And here, yeah, it's like, it's weirdly, it has a bias towards the left. Okay, and then how much space? Yeah, what's going on? I guess no spacing between. And I gotta double up on some of these numbers. So you've got like 16 and then 13. Is what we're actually looking at here on frame 2, which will be a component. 13 looks a bit more accurate. Great. And now, so I just picked like an arbitrary width for this. In fact, and it's hugging on its contents, I'm sure, because I haven't, yeah. But we're gonna need this to be a little different, right? Because I'm expecting that caret should be like, yeah, pinned to the right. And as we collapse this, yeah, I bet this middle part where we have our text is filling all available space. Or, there we go. Yeah, perfect. So frame 1 here, and we should clean these names up. Fill container. Great. So now when this resizes, it'll be a lot more realistic. All right, let's clean up our layer names. There's a little bit more styling to do. I realize we need rounded corners, but call this account, email, budget name, I'm happy with. We will call this guy, what is it in here? Budget email. Cool. Got our logo container, I'm fine with that name. And then we've got our icon caret that's just hanging out. So we've got these 3 items. This is set to hug, this is set to fill, this is set to hug. Perfect. And then we've got, who are you? A certain kind of button. We've got our sidebar, nav, menu, budget button. And I think we're gonna have a lot of different kinds of buttons. So I am gonna opt to use / naming. For this, I don't want just one huge button component. Oh my gosh, and you know what? Wow, I really jumped ahead of myself. I meant to do a lot more like foundational kind of button work with this. I think something that, I guess like an architectural method that we've been using at work that I think is a really good system, and I'd be interested in putting the idea out there for others to use or at least react to. Is this like, is using Figma's components as stand-in tokens until Figma has native support for some sort of token feature, right? And we've got styles and we've got you know, we've got color styles, we've got text styles, but they can't cascade. You can't have like, you know, you can't set like your base palette and then assign those things, meaning like this is primary 100, right? Or you'd have to manually update it if there were multiple styles that shared the exact same hex code. Like they can't have relationships. They can't cascade the way that you can with components. And you know, thinking about like atomic design, yeah, not quite the same. It's not quite there. It's a great feature, but we don't have tokens yet, and nothing for spacing, right? So at work, we've been using components as a workaround for spacing. So what do I mean by that? Let's call this the budget selector button. I think I actually, hold on. Before I move into this, I think I made a note about this. Budget menu button. All right. Yeah, what I mean by this. So, you know, maybe we come to, maybe we find out that, and I think I'll do this for other buttons. Maybe, you know what, yeah, I think that's going to be the way. I don't want to do this for every single button. I think it'll be overkill. Because this button only shows up in the one place. Let's take a look at some of these other ones to see if we get similar padding. But the idea would be to have like base components that control your padding, your spacing rules, right? And for that, we need to rely very heavily on one of Figma's most underrated features, component swapping. You can swap any component for any other component, unlike Sketch, unless they've changed this. But when I was using Sketch in 2017, you could only swap components if they shared similar sizes, right? A 16 by 16 icon in Sketch could only be swapped for other elements that were 16 by 16 pixels. Figma doesn't care. Figma doesn't. You could swap something that's 16 by 16 pixels with something that's 1,000 by 1,000 pixels, which is awesome. It's what makes this method workable. So what you would need is something called a swapper. I like to make them really silly colors, or in fact use Figma's own purple hue to signal like, hey, this is not part of the design system. And then what you would do is take an instance of that swapper, wrap it in a frame, and let's say, you know, what do we got going here for our padding? We've got 13 top and bottom and 16 all around. If that is going to be used in multiple places, you know, we could set this up and we could call this, and now I'm going to use a dot, or we could do the same thing with an underscore. This would be a component that doesn't get published. It's a base component. It's not part of the design system. It's not meant to be seen in the assets panel and pulled in to local files. I like the dots because they take up less space. And we would call this maybe like button padding. And we could have a whole bunch of these. Oops, don't do that. Right? And you know what? Maybe this is how we should do it too. We could have variants of them too. We'll just have our button padding, and we'll swap stuff out. But here's the deal. I haven't even finished the thing yet. So now we've got a component called button padding. This doesn't look like a piece of interface, right? And it shouldn't. What we do is we take this guy, and then we take, you know, all of this stuff. Let's drag this out. Let's get rid of this guy. Oh, geez. Actually. Oh, I was working a bit too fast. I'm actually just going to take off all the styling on this containing frame. We're going to say no space between. Well, I guess we'll keep our 7 pixels. Actually, how did that show up like that? Yeah, I want that to be 0, actually. No space between. Nothing like that, right? No padding. But all the same rules, right? This is still filling all available space. These are still set to hug. And I would call this And this is also a component that does not get published. So again, I'm going to throw a dot in the front, and I would call it, what have we got? We've got our button padding. So let's call this button content budget menu. I'm just thinking about my folder systems here. So we're going to have a bunch of stuff called button. I guess the period is also going to separate things out, but there's tokens and then there's content. Those things need to be separate. So this will be token padding. Maybe actually we don't need a second folder there, but I will use a dash to differentiate. So now what we have, oh, and this needs to be a component as well. So now what we can do, move this guy out of the way. We've got an instance. We've got an instance of button token padding. And like I said, right, we can swap any component with any other component. For this purple box, for our swapper, we will swap in our content. Now it's going to come in weird. I wish it wouldn't. I wish Figma was a little bit better about this. Maybe if I update it to hug here, that might be, yeah, that fixes it up. Great. And now, you know, I've got a place, I've assigned to this component like a really specific job. I've given it a really specific job of being in charge of padding, right? If I wanted to adjust the padding of this button, yeah, I could do it here on the instance. I've got all those same values, but if I wanted to do it globally, right? If I've got a whole bunch of buttons and I want to affect those globally because, you know, the power of components, I should do that here. And this will be maybe easier to see once we do a couple of these. But now to this instance, again, because Figma lets us override a whole lot, we can apply a fill here. And we can apply a border radius, which we haven't done yet. I think that's going to be the way to go. I would like to at least try with this system. I kind of want to experiment with this since, oh shoot, okay. Border radius is based on rems. So 0.375 rem. Ooh, I wish I was good enough at reverse engineering this. Maybe it's 16. Let's just take a guess though. I think I'm gonna eyeball it. It'll be faster. Kind of looks like 6. That looks good. That'll be another thing I want to read up on. That is something else that could be tokenized, right? People would love, I'm sure. I don't know if I've seen a thread, you know, I've seen a lot of folks in the Figma community forum asking for these things, asking for native token support, especially for spacing, or the ability to edit instances. And I agree. I think those would be, well, not on editing instances. And others have said this, it would really break like the whole point of components, I think. But native spacing tokens, that would rock. That would be great. And you know, border radius, this is another thing similar to the padding that I think it'd be awesome to like bake this into the system, like have this value, have some sort of control of like, you know, this is, I've maybe got like, gosh, 3 different kinds of border radii that I use throughout my design system, and to be able to make a sweeping update all in one, like all from one place to those would be fantastic. The best we have right now to make big changes like that is components, and we can exploit them to kind of be a crutch for now. Who knows? You know, config, it's April 24th right now. Config is coming up in May. Maybe that'll be the big feature announcement. But I don't want to wait around for that. And I think I think it's very fun to kind of figure out what we can do with the tools that we have today to get by. If they update, it's a happy problem that the method that I was using is obsolete. So yeah, so how might we do that, right? We've got a token specifically for padding. Could there be a way that we also kind of make, if it is indeed 6 pixels rounded corners, could we indeed bake that into our system so that way all of our buttons have only a few options for rounded corners that we can choose from, and then control from one place, right? Not that I'm expecting YNAB to go through some major rebrand during this, but I guess part of I want to do this build to, like, think about, like, what would this library look like for, like, a real product team to be using, and yeah, how, like, are these methods, like, workable? So let's see. So we've got our padding. Maybe what we could do, and actually I think I want to apply a fill to this so it'll be a bit easier to work with. So what we could do is we could, what I would call rewrapping it, right? We could rewrap it into another main component frame. And then maybe perhaps this one is where we can apply our 6 pixels, our 6, for our corner radii, we could apply that, and we will have to turn clip contents on. And then this one would be corner radius, right? And then instead, grab a copy of this. Now we have to go a couple levels deep. Now you can probably see the cost of working in this way. So there's trade-offs being made. Yes, budget menu. Swap that in. We'll change, we'll update our background color. The trade-offs being made here is right now this, oops, it's not what I meant to do. And where is the white fill applied? That would be at the padding level. So we would update it here. Wonderful. So now we've componentized a couple things, but at the cost of added layers, right? This is a simple button. Our most simple buttons that we'll make, where are they? Probably something like this, right? This big green assign button. It has a label, it has an icon. That is at most 3 layers, right? A layer for the text, a layer for the icon instance, which maybe has its own nested layer, right, for the vector shape, and then the containing frame. So maybe you've got 3 things inside, all contained by a 4th frame, right? So 4 layers at its simplest to make a button. That's great. But you can see we've already got, with this guy, oh, I've got a plugin for this. A layer counter, because this does become a problem. Count things. Oh, I should have uninstalled that. That was not a helpful one. Layer counter, there we go. So already 11 as opposed to 4. We are almost triple what, I mean, and granted there's a little bit more going on here. We have like 2 text objects. We've got 2, like, we've got the icon, we've got the logo. Like, this is naturally a little bit more complicated just because of the content it needs to hold, but we're adding layers because we're isolating those jobs and giving those jobs to certain main components. It's not, we've got a main component that is in charge of our content, right? We've got a main component that is in charge of our padding and a main component that is in charge of our corner radius. These are separate layers, and that adds up. Now, thankfully, we can be strategic about this too. You have to think about, like, how many times does this thing show up in the interface? This particular button that we're building only lives in one place. We're not going to have a million of these floating around. So I think we've got a little bit of leeway here, right? it only shows up once here. But something that there could be a ton of, like check the, one of these rows right in this main budget area that we haven't gotten to yet, one of these category rows, and there's already a lot going on. You've got a checkbox, you've got your label. Once it's selected, oh my gosh, you know, when it's deselected, a little less complicated. We've got this guy, and oh, I guess it has a hover state. You know, we're gonna have to have these shapes in here. This other, like this is our assigned value. We've got our activity, which becomes interactive, let me tell you, and we're gonna have to get some dummy data in here to kind of see that in action. And then our available thing going on here, which is, so just one of these rows, not even interacting with it, is already complicated enough. And then you start interacting with it. I guess it's no different. Like we'll have all these same things. But what I'm saying is there's, you can see already, there's like dozens of these in the interface. And so this is a component where if we want this kind of control, where we want to like isolate the visual aspects of it and like kind of fake our way into tokens exploiting Figma's component mechanics, we're gonna have to be, I think when we get here, really choosy about like what is gonna be worth it. Is it gonna be worth it even to build in this way? Maybe not. And you could argue, you know, for this thing, like maybe overkill. Isolating these elements, isolating padding and corner radius, all for one piece of interface that shows up once, maybe too much. Maybe that's not worth it. But I do want to try. I want to try and I want to see what it looks like, because I think I don't know, I'm just interested. I think it would be so obvious, and I think maybe a bit more boring and very expected to just like, okay, you know, you just pack everything you need into one component. But I think this, you know, we can do some interesting stuff when we start breaking these things out. And it's not a way of working that I've seen a lot of other folks do, maybe for good reason. Maybe they've tried it and they're like, that's too, like, you know, people are moving away from base components. Perhaps this is why it's a bit much. But I find some value in it. So I want to give it a proper go. I want to give it a proper go in this system, and we'll see, and we'll learn something, and you know, we'll all be better for it. At least I will. So, all right, we've got these tokens. These are going to expand, but then we've got this guy. This is our specific, you know, we'll rewrap this as well. And this one is not going to have the dot in front of it to prevent it from being published. This is one of our many buttons, so we'll call it button budget menu. Great. Oh, and it can go further, folks. Like, now, thankfully, I don't know if that's maybe the right thing, but do these share the same hover state? It also looks like these update. There's a bit of a delay. There's a bit of like a fade in happening up here on this one. I was about to say that's like another visual element that we could handle as a token, you know, components, interactive states of interactivity, like hover, like focus. So, but I don't think so. I think let's handle those at each component, like at this level, not at this level. Because there's enough differences here. I guess like the color, the animation is interesting. But yeah, let's actually see. Let's see if that's a different color. Now, when we did take away the background element on these, on the whole nav, you remember that these guys don't actually have a fill. They are transparent. So let's do that again. Okay, where are we at? Yeah, background. And then on hover, yeah, these list items, right. Oh, come on. if we check the hover box there, oh, why isn't that working? Okay, well, I guess I got to turn the background back on. Thought that would work. Yeah, I'm gonna need to find a better way to inspect and handle things like these different states. Just really taken a long time for me to get that information. Okay, so maybe it's hovering. Yeah, okay, I was, you know, hovering on the list element, didn't do anything, but then we've got this change in background color. And again, it's like I can click on this, but this is the sidebar button. Like, can you take me to this variable? Oh my gosh, 28889C. All right. Oh, we've learned something. This is great. Now, I do wonder. Okay, and but we're looking at the wrong thing. Give me this one, and enable that hover state. Great. And what is the background? Same, 28889C. Great. Okay, so that answers a little bit for me. Because I was wondering, you know, was just going back and forth on like, should we tokenize our hover state? We could. We could do the same with our default state as well. You know, maybe we're swapping in. I don't think so though, because we've got so many other buttons to handle. Like we've got these guys, we've got this guy. Let's leave it up. Let's leave it up at the same level. I think we'll do kind of this mix of things here. So, all right. So we've got this. We are looking for our 28889C. I'm going to detach and recomponentize. These need to be variants, right, of button, and specifically button budget menu. Our one property that we're dealing with is interactive state right now. We want to swap out teal. 550 for maybe, what was it? Doesn't look like 700, is it? Ooh, I wonder if in, let's, is there a way to like bring up the, in the description? Was wondering if you could like bring up the hex code. So we didn't have that value. If I add this teal in, this is a teal, but we don't know where it sits. Oh, these are out of order. I don't know. Yeah, 550 for now. It's a little bit darker though than 600, so maybe 650. How far away is it from 700? What if I turn this into 700? Oh, it's got, okay, so this doesn't have quite enough green in it. Oh well. Okay, that's fine. You know what? We'll find these values and make corrections to our color system, and maybe at the end or when we get to good stopping points, we can get rid of stuff that we're not using. I know there's plugins for that. Great. So we've got our default, our resting state for our button. We've got our hover state, our property. We have, this is going to be interactive state. I like to specifically say interactive state because I don't know, I've seen folks lump in like disabled into like just a property called state, and that's cool. I found it helpful though to break out state of like interactive states from state of ability, just because they don't like they're different in my mind, and you know properties are free, but I don't know, we'll see. There's also something to be said for not, you know, throwing a whole bunch of properties on your variants and polluting the space, right? This can become this bit of this design panel can extend quite a bit. So awesome, we've got our hover state. Let's see what we have a change for active. Nothing. How about focus? Nothing. Focus visible. Ah, all right. So we've got this like, and that might just be a default color for the browser. Oh my gosh, I want to zoom in. Yeah. But we'll grab it. Oh, and actually I should have made a copy of the default one because we don't have a change in the fill. So we'll call this focus. We'll add a stroke. Oh, and we want to add a stroke at a very specific level. So you can see when I do it here, come on, zoom in. It's not respecting where that rounded corner is. And the reason why is because we, again, if you remember, decided to have corner radius get handled at a very specific, by a very specific component. And so then we need to, if we want, you know, that stroke to follow those curves, we need to apply it where those curves live. So we'll put the stroke here. Paste in that value. Maybe that didn't take. Oh my gosh. I think I'm copying. All right, no, we'll just do it with our brains. Oh wait, and it's doing RGB, that's why. No, yeah, hexadecimal. What's going on? And yeah, Shift Command C, or what's that, Option or Control? I think it's Option. Okay, I'm just gonna take a screenshot and use Figma's color picker. Man, having a bad time with tools. Oh, disappeared on me. All right, screenshots. There we go. Okay, and we should probably save this as a style. We will reuse this for other focus states. And I believe we want to bump up that to 2. That looks correct. All right. All of that just for a focus state. Great. Okay. We've got it. We've got one component. A little bit of a messy canvas, but that's okay. Oh, our swapper. This also should probably have a dot in front of it. Not that I'm publishing this library, but actually no. Swappers are kind of nice to be able to have in your local file too. So we'll just keep it. All right. So we've got our button menu budget, and yes, this is great. Oh, I forgot we even had the container. So here's what we can do. We can put this in here. And oh, let's have these guys fill all available space. That's what they're meant to do. Fill container. Reset. Overrides. That's a weird thing that Figma makes you do, is just these resizing things don't always line up, and it can be kind of confusing about when overrides have happened and when they haven't. So I'm also noticing, we go in, yeah, okay. We need some of these other things to fill container as well. Yeah, our corner radius token, that's not going as expected, right? Because these can't fill all available space. They're just hanging out on the canvas. The best we could do is fix them. We know that we're probably going to add variants to those later though. So let me drag these down. Oh, come on. And we'll just make some copies, detach those, turn them into components. I'm not going to keep them. I just need to do that. There might be a faster way, but I'm going to just combine these guys as variants and then get rid of those extras that I just made. So now that those main components are in some sort of container, they can fill all available space. Oh, but these need auto layout on them. We'll select both of those. Now we can say fill. Okay, and naturally that messes some things up elsewhere. So let's inspect around and see what went wrong. If we go deep in here, this is set to hug, our content, our button content. That's maybe not what we want for that. Oh, and these aren't correct either. So this is supposed to be token padding. Same with this. Yeah, we lost. Our layer names. Okay. So this is set to hug. I don't know if that's what we want. Oh, and this chunk is what gets swapped out for the swapper. So we actually need to come in here on our swapper. Yeah, and instead of fixed width, I think if we set these to fill container, we'll be okay. Oh, perhaps not. Yeah, that's set to fill container, but that's not quite right. Let's just give it a jog. Okay, so that's set to fill. This isn't though. And it ought to be. Same with this. We just have to update some stuff. Okay. And we'll just do that on the rest. Everything should be filling horizontally, all the way up. Oh, I might have missed one layer here. Yeah, that's hug. No, that should be fill. Now, this guy still looks kind of broken. So let's reset. All right, what's going on? Ah, that still has a fixed width. What's the deal? Because it's a fixed width here. So you'll notice I'm using, you know, these instances of where things are broken to identify where the problem is, but I'm always going back to the main component to actually implement the change. That's been kind of a tough habit to build. It's really easy because, again, Figma gives us a lot of, you know, we can make overrides to tons of stuff. But, you know, it's not expecting us to work in any certain way. And so then it doesn't give us any feedback about, like, you know, if we are trying to work in a certain way, it can't tell us when we're doing that wrong, or when we're making a mistake or something's amiss. So here I just, you know, when in doubt, I reset stuff and then just swap stuff back in. All right, and that is looking good. So now, oh, and you know what? Let's set up our interactivity here, right? So we've got on hover, swap to that, and our focus state, I guess, would just be there for documentation, so we don't need to worry about that. So now we can do our first little prototype test with this and see if it looks good. Throw a frame around that, we'll hit play. Oh, and I think after this, I will call it quits for today. But this was great because I got to demo some concepts that I had been wanting to demo, and I hope that they get maybe more clear as more stuff gets built. Okay, so we've got this guy. Let's fill the screen. And yep, if I hover over it, that's looking good. And I'm just kind of like looking at our spacing. I think we're good considering, you know, we've got 3 pixels here dedicated to the sidebar resizer. Oh, I love this new addition of these icons in the menu. That's really helpful. Good for them. All right, great. So we've got kind of the beginnings of these components. We've got this first button. We are tokenizing through components our padding and our corner radius. Did I get these backwards? Hold on. I don't think I did. This looks fine. But I do want to arrange them in a certain way on the canvas, because corner radius is a child of padding, right? And I like to have my smallest, like my more atomic, smaller particles on top, and things flow down, right? Just kind of the same way, right? That's how it works in CSS, where, you know, things cascade downward. Got some little annotations going on here, and that's something else to talk about with components later. Annotation components. Okay, great. Good, yes. So next time around, let's flip back over to YNAB, the real one. Man, oh. My computer is taking quite a long time to catch up. There we go. Okay, get out of inspect. So next time, I think, and since we've got some of these token components set up for the padding, for the corner radius, we can work on some of these other side navigation items. Something that'll be really cool to do as well is get the prototyping working. And I can't do it right now because I'm getting beach balled, but for this like budget kind of accordion menu, so this collapsible area, that'll be cool. Maybe even this, it's really hard to see. There's an icon down there that will kind of shrink this side nav menu for you. That would be fun to get that working in the prototype. And the dragability of the side nav as well. So there's lots to be done here, but we've still got a few components yet to be made. I'm gonna have to figure out how to get these SVGs in again, right? Because we've got these icons that all need to come in, but yeah. All right.